Hello to everybody. I'm Cevdet Alemdar. I'm representing TÜSİAD in this meeting. TÜSİAD is Turkey's Business People Association, and I am one of the board members and the chair for Sustainability and Energy Roundtable. Today, we will be talking about financing of the green initiatives. And funding of decarbonization is obviously imperative for all the initiatives that we are taking here. But before getting and saying this very general word is one thing, but there are lots of questions on the back. One of them is, do the companies really think in Turkey that sustainability and green transition is something that will be done that will be needed to be done in the future for some time? Or is it something that must be done today for the opportunities that are seen? Another question is, do we have right financial mechanisms available in Turkey, well-structured financial mechanisms available in Turkey? The third question is, what are the real challenges and the real roadblocks in this road of finding and accessing to the financial funds for green transition in Turkey? In this call, we will be referring to those three questions with very distinguished guests, and those distinguished guests are representing many sides of the issue. We have Mrs. Işıl Akdemir Evlioğlu, who is the Executive Vice President of Garanti BBVA. We have Neslihan Döngel Özlem, the CFO of BRISA, the Bridgestone Sabancı Joint Venture in Turkey, representing industry, and Mrs. Işıl Evlioğlu is representing the banking part. We have Ms. Şule Kılıç, the Deputy Head of EBRD in Turkey. And we have Mr. Doğan Korkmaz, CFO of Tüpraş, the leading refinery in Turkey. So, welcome to all. And let me jump into the questions. And if it's okay for you, I'd like to address the first question to Işıl Hanım and ask who drives the initiative here? I mean, is it the banks that are asking that we're gonna guide you through your green transition, or is it some sort of a push mechanism, or is it a pull mechanism that the companies are coming and asking you? And what kind of barriers do you experience while guiding your clients towards the sustainable transition?
Cevdet Bey, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank TÜSİAD for this kind invitation for this valuable panel. I believe that this event will be very valuable for all participants, I think, to define the relationship between sustainable finance and the green growth. Coming to your question around, who drives the growth, who initiates that, I think it's both ways, but it is given, at least for Turkey, given the situation, I think it's more the financial institutions than the companies themselves. But obviously, there is also a huge regulatory environment going on both locally and globally, and that will be having a lot of implications on the companies themselves. And maybe if I go to what are they and how do they affect, one of the most critical topic would be for the Turkish companies will be the carbon border adjustment mechanism that we will be seeing to be live, at least for measurement for next year, but then also for the implications for 2026. As you know, in the first phase of the carbon border adjustment mechanism, it is actually companies which export to EU under the sectors of iron and steel, cement, aluminum, fertilizer, organic chemicals, and electric sectors will be facing some additional carbon costs if their production process is not aligned with the EU standardized expectations regarding sustainability. And obviously, if you are not aligned with this structure, you will be facing some extra carbon taxes in a way, or carbon costs, And as I said, the reporting will be starting in just 2 months next year. And the financial dimension of it, meaning the carbon costs, will be coming in 2026. Why is this very critical for Turkey? It is very critical because EU is our critical export market, which is making 41% of our total export, roughly around $93 billion on a yearly basis. And coming to the share of the carbon border adjustment mechanisms implication, it is more than 5% of our total exports, and it is almost 11% of our exports to EU markets that will be affected by this adjustment mechanism. And what is the cost? When the carbon price will be determined by the European ETS system. And when initially in 2011, the cost per ton was around 15 to 20 euros. And when this adjustment mechanism was announced, it even increased up to 90 euros per ton. Now it's trading around 70 euros, but it is a critical cost, as you would see, for the companies. So what is the barrier? I think the major barrier is for the awareness of the companies that such regulations, not only this one, but obviously some other ones are also coming. We see some enterprises effectively monitoring and taking actions to be ready for this type of regulation, but we still see a lot of companies that are not fully aware of the implications of such regulations. And that's why I think the financial sector's critical role is to increase the awareness of the companies with the implications of these regulations, which would be coming very soon. Maybe I should announce, for instance, next week we will be holding an event in Istanbul for our enterprises and SME customers, where our CEO, some industry experts and critical thought leaders around this area will be joining together with our customers to increase the awareness, to explain the implications and what type of actions the companies can take. So I think for the financial institutions, the consultancy role that we need to keep is very critical for our clients to be ready for such changes. And the critical second barrier is the lack of data. I was in COP last week, and that was one of the critical topics that was discussed about data. I mean, in some parts, in some geographies, it's a lot of data and there are a lot of different measurements. So how can we really optimize? But also in some geographies, we don't have data. And as you know, I mean, before starting measuring, we cannot really monitor what the implications we will be having. So I think for the financial institutions, to ensure that we are really supporting the transformation for sustainable future, measuring is very critical, and we would need the support of our enterprises for the measurement and following tracking of that measurement to ensure that we are in the right track. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, as far as from the notes that I took, if I can make a summary, you were telling that, well, an object is approaching, and that's carbon border adjustment mechanism. And the companies should be aware that these risks have to be covered in one way or another. And the barrier around here seems to be data and the consistency and the transparency of the data. And that takes me to ask a question to the industry side, to Neslihan Hanım here, that, well, I mean, Işıl Hanım said that, look, carbon border adjustment mechanism is something that's serious and is causing a threat, and you need to mitigate your risks. That's why you need to go to the green transition. But on the other hand, while that is coming, a lot of things are going on around your industry area. I mean, the Ukrainian war is one thing, the supply chains disruption is another thing. So as an industrial company, how do you manage this seemingly, and I emphasize the word seemingly, conflict between green transition and the day-to-day competitiveness challenges that you're living, particularly in energy costs and other things?
Thank you very much, Cevdet Bey. Now, to start with, I would also like to thank you for your kind invitation, and it's a really pleasure to be here. Yeah, your seemingly definition is definitely important. We as BRISA see this green transformation as a core in our business. So we take our every actions, putting this into our core. Then at the same time, so we get this responsibility to ours in the first place. And then, of course, with that, we are trying to improve our all processes, taking this to the core. And of course, coming with that, the financing, the accessibility to the financials is also the ultimate result that will be beneficial for all of us. So what we are doing as BRISA, as I said, we are genuinely committed to our ESG strategy and targets, which have been defined in a very wide perspective with our partners Sabancı and Bridgestone. We place great value on measurement and quantification of results. We have been following our greenhouse gas emissions since 2005, and we have been sharing these with the public since 2012. In industry and operations, as you said, it is very hard there are challenges to decrease the carbon emissions. However, we are committed, as BRISA, we are committed net zero target by 2050. And we committed 56% reduction in our carbon emission by 2030. We determined our decarbonization roadmap in line with 1.5 degree scenario, and we got the approval of Science-Based Target Initiative in 2021 as the first company in Turkey and also the first company globally in tire industry. So coming to our investment plans and financing structures, as you also said seemingly, we believe ESG improvements and financing portfolio diversification are very good complementaries rather than conflicting targets. Surely for today there are challenges, as Işıl Hanım also said, there are calculation problems, measurement problems, data problems. We are also facing this. There are problems in financial reporting side and valuation side in financial terms, but we are trying to clarify all these. First of all, to measure it by ourselves in our company. And in the financing side, definitely there are, of course, challenges as world economies are having hard times with high inflation, with different government policies and restrictions. The critical point here is that these challenging times should not disrupt the green transformation decisions that have been given by the companies. So in this environment, we are trying to improve our all processes, as I said. We are trying to increase our efficiencies in the production. We are trying to transform our product portfolio to more sustainable, to more efficient tires, products that will decrease fuel consumption and ultimately impact carbon emissions in the world. And in the sustainable finance side, we are in talks with our business partners, financial institutions. We are working together to crystallize the data, to crystallize the real value that we can create within our processes, and talking on the different financing alternatives to find the best optimal solution, I would say. So I may say it is not directly related to carbon action plan, but climate change action plan. But for our Aksaray investment, for example, in 2014 and 2015, we have worked with EBRD, and based on our social transformation aspects in our investment there. And for the future, as we are already working with our finance business partners, as I said, we're aiming to lead the industry with best practices and results recognized in global sustainability arena, and to come up with the new financing solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What I'm hearing is that you are taking that at the level of Science-Based Targets Initiative at the challenging 1.5 degrees Celsius. So that shows, as far as I understand, that industry, at least the big industry, is taking this seriously, not as a against competition part. But again, the question stands on the table. What is happening in the energy part and the energy cost part, and how does the energy would help us develop and reach to a resilient net zero target? And that question goes to our CFO in Tüpraş, Mr. Doğan Korkmaz.
Thank you, Cevdet Bey. Let me take this opportunity to thank TÜSİAD and yourselves for moderating this talk. Good morning to everyone. Yeah, the world at the moment runs around 100 million barrels of oil products every day at the moment, and this will not obviously automatically disappear in a matter of years. Even if we accelerate the transition towards greener solutions, especially in transportation, it is expected that the need towards 2030 will still be around 106 million barrels per day, and the peak is expected to be around 2035, which is again 107, 108 million barrels per day. Obviously, this increase in demand is not due to increase in production or oil and gas sector somewhat promoting the use, as one might recall from other industries. This is purely the preference of the public that really matters in this instant. A smooth transition of the supply, obviously, to keep up with the preference of the public at any phase of this transition is of utmost importance. Otherwise, I mean, as we have experienced recently, a backlash from not having the adequate resources to meet the demand creates a surge in carbon emissions coming from conventional, alternative, even heavier fossil energy sources, and obviously also jeopardizes the speed of the transition going forward. This year has been a year that has shown the importance of sustainable and also reliable energy supply on a global scale. Despite renewable investments totaling around $3 billion in the past decade, and towering obviously all over the globe, I mean, surpassing the other investments in the sector, oil and gas sector really remains as the backbone of global energy supply as we speak today. And underinvestment in this sector have shown its undesired consequences, especially on consumers. In that respect, it is really very important that financial actors continue to take a balanced approach in providing funds for the oil and gas industry in order to secure a reliable transition. First, obviously, to keep up with the current capacity needs in a more energy efficient way, which also means less Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions, obviously, from this industry. And then for the much needed significant transition budget needed to achieve Paris-aligned 1.5 degrees target. At COP26, one of the major milestones in this financing frameworks, Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, was established to ensure balanced energy transition, especially for oil and gas companies. I also think one big reason to allocate substantial mitigation financing and incentives to oil and gas sector by governments, central banks, commercial banks, institutional investors, and all other financial actors is the marginal contribution we would all get from the sector's decrease in carbon emission, being higher than the already green sectors. both by improving their conventional operational units for a more energy efficient solution, i.e. less carbon emitting production, and also their own transition to become green energy producers of the future in electricity, biofuels, hydrogen, with all their know-how in energy production, handling hazardous operations, distribution, and in chemistry in general.
Thank you very much. Doğan Bey, what I'm hearing is that, what I heard is that demand will increase in Turkey.
Yeah,
And,
not only in Turkey, globally as well.
And while demand is increasing, the two things that needs to be done is efficiency, be it in the way of manufacturing the existing ones, producing the existing ones from existing sources, and also the transition. And for that, there is a requirement for budget, and that puts a lot of help requests from big financial institutions. And here we have one of the biggest and the most important financial institutions in the world, if I may say so. And we have the representative of EBRD as the deputy head of Turkey, Mrs. Şule Kılıç. Şule Hanım, can you tell us about EBRD's track record? What has been done until today? And what are the targets for Turkey, in particular in Turkey's perspective for EBRD?
Thank you very much. EBRD being established in 1991, initially the mission was bring all the countries which joined as countries of operation to become a free market economy. But since 1991, the things has changed so much, and now for development of a country, we are talking a very different world, which needs to include the carbon zero economy, which includes the sustainability, which includes the efficiency, which includes social sides, and digitalization. So this means that for each country there are a big list of to-dos. It's not just mitigating investments to make the climate change to stop, but also in parallel to still continue for the development of the country to keep up with the changes in the era, including the digitalization. So this brings us a big, of course, mission. And as EBRD, we have, of course, had to adapt ourselves. And having the climate and sustainability together with all these changes of the era, we have updated our targets, and based on this, we have been actually during the COP27 as well. There has been an announcement in that respect, which includes the climate adaptation. So at the moment, as EBRD, we starting from 2023. We will not be able to finance any project which is not compatible with the Paris Agreement. And this was one important decision taken some time ago. In addition, in line with the urgency of taking actions towards the climate change, the bank has put a kind of target that minimum 50% of all the operations need to touch to green. So it needs to be green. In that respect, Turkey is, of course, has a very important role in our activities, and actually Turkey is a role model for us when it comes to any kind of new action or new model to be implemented. We first try to implement it in Turkey and then use it as a showcase for other countries of operation. So without doubt, this makes the Turkey as the largest country of operation for EBRD, and since the office was opened in 2009, and since then we have financed close to 400 projects with 17.5 3 billion euro of total investments. And one thing which I am very proud of as a Turkish person is with having the 15% of the total EBRD portfolio. Right now, Turkey is the largest country of operation, and in Turkey, on an annual basis, we invest like 1.5 to 2 billion, and out of this, we try to reach the target of 50%. At the moment, we are at the level of 47% green. So in each client which we are working on, we are trying, if we are giving 10 euros, we try to make sure that at least 5 euros goes for the green and sustainability. Having said that, of course, in Turkey, we have, on the ones, that we are private sector focused development bank, and 93% of our operations with the private sector. And thanks to Turkey, we have a very strong private sector, which helps us to implement our country strategies in Turkey. And in each sector, as also Işıl Hanım said, we have large targets to achieve in order to reach to minimize the impact of the CBAM and also to reach our zero carbon targets by 2053. I just put some, information together for you, just to give you an idea about the numbers and where we are as EBRD. In Turkey, in order the total investments to be made in 2020 to 2030, in basically the 10 years in front of us, we have to invest $135 billion of investment for the energy transformation, because still more than 50% of our energy consumption is, unfortunately, or the capacity is coming from the hydrocarbon used energy production facilities. And for this, we have calculated, and it looks like we would need something like financing of $110 billion of financing. This required investment amount is 2 times higher compared with the past 20 years on average, and 2.5 times higher in the case of financing requirements. So, of course, this makes us have a big responsibility, and we try to take our portion as much as we can. And if possible, we try to also mobilize other financing sources aside us, be it donor funding, be it other private sector financiers, to support these investments. Again, I want to give you one more number. Istanbul Policy Center made Turkey's decarbonization roadmap for near zero by 2050. And based on this power sector, just the transmission, because we are always talking the renewable energies and so, but without including the transmission, it is impossible to consider the decarbonization of the energy sector, for example, which is the key for the decarbonization of all the sectors. And in that respect, for the grid to make it more efficient and to improve the transmission and enlarging the transmission network in a business as usual, the investment to be made is $200 million. And for the past, and now it goes up to $1.5 billion for the next 10-year period. Again, in the transportation sector, this number goes up to $12.5 billion. In the buildings, which is, by the way, the main source of energy utilization, one of the main users of energy, to improve the energy efficiency and those kind of investments in the physical assets, we need close to $100 billion of investment until 2030. And of course, industry, when we look at this, actually industry still is more manageable in that respect for the decarbonization and energy efficiency investments, and it is only like $20 billion. So as EBRD, in all these sectors, we are trying to take our portion and try to provide financing to all projects, which includes sustainability, decarbonization, and anything green in it. And our country strategy is fully aligned with this. And to realize this support, we try to do it directly, as well as by having our very important partners, in this case, the Turkish banks and Turkish financing institutions aside us. And just 2 days ago, there was a launching of the green economy facility framework in Turkey, GEF. And right now we have $500 million allocated for Turkey for the next 4 years, and actually we already have signed 2 facilities with TSKB and Yapı Kredi Leasing under this GEF program. And you may say, what is GEF? And of course, GEF doesn't just include the green part, but also the gender responsive, and integrates also the technical assistance program for the corporate climate governance, with the aim of accelerating necessary changes towards the net zero carbon economy, and using our financial sector to help us to deliver and to reach out small and medium-sized companies, the households, through these facilities. Maybe I should stop here because I can't talk hours. Thank you.
No, but that's great. That's great to hear that the biggest operations of EBRD is in Turkey. And a lot has been done, 400 projects, $17 billion. And that's just the starting point. And you're telling that we need $100 billion more in the next 8 years until 2030. And,
exactly.
And also your funding, I mean, the new projects that you are funding are also not only for decarbonization, but also in a more comprehensive manner to the overall sustainability. And this general knowledge of how EBRD works over there takes me to another question to Doğan Bey, to Tüpraş, that Doğan Bey in his first answer gave us a very good umbrella explanation about what's happening in the world and what's happening in Turkey in terms of energy consumption and where is the need for transition. But can we now go a little bit in detail, Doğan Bey, about what did and what does Tüpraş do nowadays for its green transition efforts? Can you give us some inspiring examples that our listeners may hear and inspired?
Sure, thank you. We'll try to. With our strategic plan that was launched last year, we have started investing in 3 new areas that fall under the green financing scope. We will, as Tüpraş, invest $5 billion until 2035. And more than half of this budget will go to sustainable aviation fuel, zero carbon electricity, and green hydrogen investments in our portfolio. We will also prioritize sustainable energy efficiency projects within our refineries to keep up with the demand during the transition, as I have mentioned in my previous reply, in a more efficient and less carbon emitting way. Hence, we promised for 27% reduction as a refinery in carbon emissions by the year 2030, which will go up to 35 in 35. And we will reach our net zero target by the year 2050. Based on our own Turkey's transportation energy demand study, we believe Turkey's oil demand will peak by the year 2030. EVs will lead new car sales starting by the beginning of next decade. And 10% of the fuel in aviation will be sustainable aviation fuel by the year 2030. These developments will obviously shape the energy transition trajectory in Turkey, and we will invest accordingly to maintain our position as the lead energy producer of the country. We believe Turkey's energy demand profile will start changing materially over 2030 to 2040 period, with hydrogen, electricity, and sustainable aviation fuel becoming leading fuels of the future, like everywhere else in the whole world. The capital-intensive industries will definitely, obviously, need the support of green finance options in order to attract more capital, preferably at lower cost and longer maturities. Although energy investments are becoming more modular going forward, they're not happening in one go like refining investments in the past. A good example is investment profile in green electricity, but you can easily add capacity by time. Same goes for hydrogen electrolyzer production capacity. They come in containers nowadays, so you can build up capacity over time with a well distribution of capex throughout your investment period. Mind you, I mean, financially, they are large scale investments because of the capacity that you need to obviously build up to become relevant. Especially for hydrogen, it's not going to be intensive at the beginning for sure, because they're not, I mean, feasible at the moment because of the cost dynamics. The needed capex is going to be high going forward, and incentives are definitely are in the need, but they are rather limited at the moment. I mean, in Turkey, it's almost none, especially for hydrogen. So in order to meet our ambitions, we're starting smaller scale hydrogen investments at the moment and fund them with our own funds on our own balance sheet. However, the world needs larger investments as soon as possible, and financial actors, especially commercial development banks, as Şule Hanım has suggested, should start looking into these larger projects and consider financing them, even if they see some commercial risks like lack of offtake guarantees, as you would normally get in the energy sector. While this transition will be gradual and require relatively steady amount of capital, we believe green financing options will definitely be needed to support this transition with lower rates, longer maturities, and a global diversified investor base. In Tüpraş, we're also focusing on various green financing solutions like SLBs, green bonds, transition bonds, or ESG-linked bonds. In terms of reporting, the standards are converging and getting more stringent every day. Recently, as yesterday, G20 leaders acknowledged the work of the ISSB and expressed their support for a global baseline of sustainable disclosure standards. The world has gone through similar standardization in financial reporting globally with IFRS, which was quite instrumental for many industries. So in making financing markets grow significantly, as it enabled investors to easily understand and compare financial information anywhere in the world across different industries. That's why I believe standardization will make green finance market grow even much bigger. In the long run, solutions such as integrated reporting will gain importance, will probably be the standard itself, by giving key stakeholders the ability to track the performance of the company in a well-structured manner. I'm happy to say that in Tüpraş we made significant improvement in our disclosure since last year especially, which resulted in an average of 40% increase in ESG ratings of the company from 6 well-known rating agencies. A continuous process of making gap analysis with rating agency standards, obviously, and their expectations, as well as we take guidance from discussions with financial institutions, as we do today, investors, etc., all stakeholders, including our own employees. Tüpraş's current pledge are well beyond most Turkish corporates, I must say, and we will continue to set an example to the companies both in the country and in the region, in our industry especially. What is important is we are committed to do more and more every year and become among top-tier companies in our industry in the future as well. All because ultimately we believe it's not only about decreasing carbon emissions, it's about being the prime supplier of energy in the future in a sustainable way and to stay relevant, to still be the leader in the energy industry.
That's great to hear, and that's great to hear that you are increasing your ESG scoring at a very significant pace. That shows that the efficiency that you were referring in the very first question is also you are addressing it in terms of efficiency of what is being done, and you also gave us some insights about what would be the transition, particularly the incrementality of the capex requirement of hydrogen gives you some signals that this may be further, and you also underlined the importance of green funding again. If that's a proper summary, Doğan
Yes,
Bey,
that's right. Thank you.
I will take the question to another industry, this time more manufacturing industry, to Neslihan Hanım, and ask that, well, we have talked about carbon border adjustment mechanism. We have talked about the requirement of the need of this and the complexity of seemingly the conflict between green transition and the current businesses, current challenges. But Neslihan Hanım, can we talk a little bit about the opportunity side of this? What does the opportunity side of green transition for you? Not only the threat and what we should do, but what we can do to create more value. And if you can also attach this to the implementation of green economic transition, green economies of technology in Brisa, and how do you implement this in your daily life?
Thank you, Cevdet Bey. As you said, there are risks and challenges, but at the same time, opportunities in this transformation process. And we see this as a more opportunity to be aligned with sustainability principles, both in our industry and in the global business arena. And with the upcoming regulations, as Işıl Hanım, Şule Hanım, all we have discussed with carbon border adjustment mechanism and ETS, we expect that the roadmap will be more transparent, more understandable, and it will facilitate the ownership by all the stakeholders in the society. So we expect these upcoming regulations to act as an accelerator in this green transformation. So we see there is opportunity with the new perspective that will be brought to the system with these new regulations. Nowadays, land economics terminology has arisen, as you may have heard. It says we should look at the economics more in 3 dimensions: environment, economics, and law. And while we're giving all our decisions, say it our operational decisions or investment decisions, now we're trying to consider these three aspects at the same time and try to refine the value that we can create within our system. And while we're looking at this transformation, we're also looking at this in 3 dimensions. The first one is the efficiency in our production, as I said, so transformation in our manufacturing plants. Energy efficiency and transformation is definitely the most important one here. And we are currently working on energy efficiency projects. We are trying to be in also renewable energy side with our business partners and try to increase our efficiencies there. Another dimension is related to our products. We are working on more sustainable products. We're trying to improve our product portfolio that we propose to our customers, which includes sustainability dimensions in it, which includes all ESG perspectives to add value to life in terms of this transformation. And the third one is, while we're doing this, we're trying to do this transformation throughout our whole value chain, with our all stakeholders, with our suppliers, with our customers. So this is one of the dimensions that we really see very important, because as we said, of course, financial system is one of the most important triggering body, and the big manufacturers, the leaders, industry leaders, are also the other triggers in the system, which can really create an end-to-end impact on the on ESG arena. So this is also in line with our partner Sabancı Holding's vision, that we say we will not leave anyone behind. We will go to net zero target with all our value chain, with all our stakeholders. So as an opportunity also in the financing side and incentives, this is a game of whole people in the world. So we believe that if we try to create the highest value that we can in our own industries, say it to manufacturers, say it to financing, say it to government and regulatory bodies, we can come up with the best solutions. And of course, sustainable finance, funds and incentives covering a wide range of elements such as sustainable production, innovation, socially fair transformation, will definitely have an accelerating impact in this. And as an industrial company, we are eagerly waiting both for increased accessibility to incentives in our country and for the diversification of financial mechanisms in line with our investments. But definitely, we are genuinely committed to our targets, and we are doing doing our part. We are trying to do our part at the very perfect level in our industry, I would say.
Thank you very much. And the last question comes to the money, to the bank. And Işıl Hanım, 300 billion euros BBVA announced. And what does that mean for Garanti BBVA Turkey? And what should we do further?
Yeah, Cevdet Bey, as you know, and as we have discussed today, the financial sector has very important responsibility and a role in the sustainable transformation. And banks and financial institutions have the responsibility of accelerating the transition for the companies to a more sustainable business model. Being aware of this situation, we have a sustainability target, as you said, 300 billion euros as BBVA. And this comes from two parts of it. One is the green part that we had been discussing more today for mainly combating the climate change, but also the social parts, which is more about inclusive growth, to accelerate inclusive growth. So this 300 billion euro had been a moving target for us, because when we started in 2018, it was 100 billion euros by 2025. And gradually, by seeing that we will be hitting the target, we actually increased the target over the years. And we are now at 300 billion euro for 2025. And when you look at what we have achieved so far globally, we have achieved 124 billion euros of it in all the geographies of BBVA. Coming to Turkey, how we are contributing to these figures. In 2022, for the third quarter, as of third quarter, we had been supporting, mobilizing roughly 20 billion Turkish lira for sustainable development in our markets. And, obviously having the target is very critical for us. More critical is about, how we internalize it and how we deliver it through our products and services. One critical thing beyond having the product is we have integrated this target to our performance system from very junior person to the very senior person. So for all of us in the bank, this is a target that we need to deliver. And the other part is obviously what we do on our, commitments. One thing is we have clearly determined activities that we will not finance with our environmental and social loan policies. And we have announced them publicly. So we are the first bank in Turkey that announced the coal phase-out plan. We do have a plan for that. And we are the first bank that commits to UN Net Zero Banking Alliance. And currently, we are assessing our climate change risk in carbon-intensive sectors using the PACTA methodology. And this will be critical input for our pathway we will follow to reach our net zero target for and also our interim targets, not only the final target. These are the targets, the policies, and everything, but also how can we help our clients, our enterprises, and also retail customers is through our products that we have created for sustainable transformation. Beyond our standardized products and services, we are trying to create new solutions on this area. I think we have pioneered a lot of firsts in this area. I mean, it's not about being first, but it is really to come up with examples so that we can extend those products in the market with other solutions. Well, we had done the first green loan, first green project finance loan, first climate index, first green IPO in Turkey, and also first ESG-linked syndicated loan, and also first gender loan in the world, I think, are some of the examples. Last thing is, yes, we do have these products, but we also think in the transformation, having sustainability-linked loans, that is, supporting the clients when they have a transition plan for sustainability with KPIs is also very crucial to ensure that we are rightly helping all our customers in their journey.
That's impressive. And I have to say to all speakers and all the listeners, if they will, that this panel gives me hope and reinforces my optimism and my hope that Turkey will be using its full potential to be using green transition as a competitive advantage more than a threat. Why this panel has been hope for me? Because here we have Turkey's leading refinery, and we are hearing that in the ESG scores there is a significant, remarkable improvement in the last years. And also looking into future technologies and investing on future technologies. Here we have industry representatives who have been not only for Turkey, but also for the Turk, have been also for the world, have been committing for 1.5 degree science-based targets in numbers. That also gives me that, well, that's important. And Işıl Hanım's last explanation tells us that funds are available and people are working to get to those funds. And what Şule Hanım told us in the EBRD side is those funds are available and we are working hard to deploy those funds even further. 400 projects is no small number and more is coming. So this hope I think, will gonna be further materialized by further deployment, because at the end of the day, we are talking here with the leaders, and the deployment to the whole Turkish industry will take us even further. And in that note, I would like to thank ICC for giving us this opportunity. And one last note, all the panelists here are either members or partners of TÜSİAD. And in TÜSİAD, we are, and together with the participation of those panelists, we have been issuing reports telling what to do and what kind of measurement and management mechanisms can be used in green transition, particularly from the angle of green funding. So please do visit TÜSİAD reports from the website of TÜSİAD. That may also give more in-depth information. Finally, thank you very much to all panelists. That has been a great one, giving information from many different angles. Thank you very much.
A forest is born right here in Regreen's nursery of seedlings, Bioflora in Brazil's countryside.
Bioflora trabalhou por 30 anos fazendo isso, capacitando quase uma centena de viveiros no Brasil. A Regreen surge com um conceito muito parecido da Bioflora, né? Que é fazer restauração bem feita e sustentada na ciência, no conhecimento científico.
Regreen is an innovative company created to carry out ecological restoration on a large scale, contributes to the mitigation of climate change, conservation, and recovery of biodiversity. And to restore these degraded areas in the Atlantic forest and in the Amazon, everything starts with the seeds. Bioflora works as a reference center for our partner nurseries. Here, the seeds are tested one by one under strict quality control.
Nós recebemos muitos lotes de diferentes regiões, de diferentes coletores. Então é muito importante a gente identificar eles logo que eles chegam. Ocorre essa identificação, uma criação de número de lote, que a gente vai acompanhar esse número até no campo quando elas forem semeadas.
In the first 30 days, the seedlings are placed in environments with adequate lighting and temperature for their growth. They are then taken to another environment, external, and with controlled irrigation. In addition to all these precautions, techniques such as the paper pot, natural and incorporated into the soil.
Esse paper ele permite uma permeabilidade das raízes através dessa película. Então o sistema radicular fica na mesma arquitetura como se essa semente tivesse germinado e crescido no solo. O sistema radicular fica naturalmente desenvolvendo-se.
These innovative techniques, combined with research involving species cloning and genetic improvement, for example, are part of Regreen's 5-star standard for forest restoration.
Restauração é ciência, hoje está mais do que demonstrado que é. Para ganhar escala, eu precisava surgimento de empresas como a Regreen, porque agora não é só a regularização ambiental, é a restauração como um fim econômico, como uma alternativa econômica.
This is the Bioflora Nursery, a reference in forest restoration, with the production of quality seeds and seedlings, which adds science to Regreen's goal to restore nature for people and the planet.
Hoje, eu saber que eu estou trabalhando em prol da natureza, fazendo para que meus netos, meus bisnetos, possam respirar o mesmo ar que hoje estou respirando, para mim não tem preço.
This is the Regreen Standard.
Combating climate change is the biggest engineering project on the planet, and there are solutions. Because there is action. Braskem is removing CO2 from the atmosphere in the production of chemicals and plastics from plants, using more and more renewable energy sources,
improving the energy efficiency
of our industrial units, and developing technology to transform the greenhouse gases emitted into new products. Because there is only one way to make a more sustainable future. Together,